I think it's important to understand Google cares about the authority of your content. It needs to believe your content is real. Google's going to say, oh, this is an important content. So there's three things to need to think about when you're thinking about SEO. Have you done keyword research? Do you know what keywords perform best on Google that are related to your content? Is your content structured in a way that Google can consume it? Is it a good user experience?
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, a podcast by MedComms Experts. We share medical communications insights and advice from the best and brightest in the industry to find out what they're doing to push our industry forward. Here's your host, Wesley Portegies.
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, the podcast where we explore bold ideas that shape the future of medical affairs. Today, I'm here with my colleague, Janna Crabb. Janna is our Digital Communications Strategy Director here at MedComms Experts, and she consults with our clients to make sure that they can reach their audiences through digital means. Welcome to the show, Janna.
Thanks.
So, what are we going to talk about this time?
We're going to talk about search engine optimization, SEO.
Nice. So, I know we're having a lot of conversations about this topic with many different pharmaceutical companies. And it looks like the first thing we would need to do here is to clarify a little bit what this actually is. So tell us more.
So we're going to talk about search engine optimization. So SEO is how Google and other search engines surface your content and get HCPs to your site. This is not an opportunity to pay for your content to be at the top. It's very organic. There are things that you have to do and pay attention to make sure your site performs as well as possible. Google is, I think, as everybody knows, regularly making updates in how it presents search results to anybody who's searching. There's just ongoing changes. Right now, if you look, there's the AI overviews that have been up and running for a bit. But those are constantly changing how they are delivered and served and where they are on the page. At this point, they are hugely important to SEO because if you're giving somebody an overview and that's what they're reading, then you want your content to be one of those listed links in the overview. Otherwise, people don't see your content.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So to simplify, we're talking about how do you get your digital channel listed somewhere at the top in Google, so let's hope the number one, without paying Google to do so for you.
Yes, that is what we're talking about. Assuming that your content is going to be number one, unless it's a very unique niche piece of content and, somebody is searching for very specific keywords, but you really want to be on the first page of results. That's the goal, right? You want to be in the first 10 results so that your content is seen. I think we all know when we do Google searches, typically we don't go to the fifth page of results and pick something there. We trust that Google has scanned the content and that is going to provide us what is most relevant, on the first page.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, of course, since there's so much content out there and there's a lot of competition to be on that first page, that makes it a really hard thing to actually achieve, right? So, and then search engine optimization is the practice of optimizing your channel and content in order to achieve that. So could you maybe outline this in a few steps, like how to go about optimizing for search results?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's important to understand. So Google cares about the authority of your content. It needs to believe your content is real. So if you're using, AI to create 10 versions of your content, very similar, and you put them all on your website, Google's going to say, oh, this is an important content because it's just, being created to, get Google to put it higher up on the page. Right. So there's three things to need to think about when you're thinking about SEO. There's the on-page SEO, which is the content on your website, right? Have you done keyword research? Do you know what keywords perform best on Google that are related to your content? Is your content structured in a way that Google can consume it? Is it a good user experience? This really matters too. And so these things are really important when you're not just creating a website, right? So when you're creating your HCP engagement platform, you need to think about the user experience because that informs how people find your content. But also, like when you're creating a new piece of content, you want to do keyword research for that new piece of content to understand what competitors are doing, like what keywords they're ranking for, what other, not even competitors, but what we like to call search competitors. So whether they're advocacy companies or nonprofits that might actually be ranking really well for a term that you would like to get your content up there for. So for example, like Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic are out there all the time on, pretty much every search term you can come up with. And they rank really well because they've been doing it for years. And bumping those two organizations is going to be very hard. So so that's the on page, is thinking about keyword research, structure of your website page, making sure you're, structuring things with the headers in the right place, things like that. And then you have off page. Off-page SEO is really links back from other companies, organizations to your website. So whether it's a nonprofit organization that your company works very closely with is linking back to your content, or out there on social media or an email, but that content is coming to your website from other sources that are authoritative, right? So just creating an email list and sending out links is not the way to go, right? But authoritative links back to your site. And then the third piece is technical. So your website's performance, make sure page loads quickly, that your mobile site is well designed and works quickly. So the technical piece is actually important to the overarching SEO. So if your site is really slow to load, Google's going to ding you for that and you'll be bumped down in results.
Okay. So it's the quality of your content, then the research behind your content in terms of keywords and understanding how people search for the content you're offering, and then some more like technical topics, right?
Mm-hmm. And again, the authority, so other organizations pointing back to your content and saying this is important content.
Yeah. So can you give me an example of that?
You work closely with a nonprofit organization that is a patient advocacy group, right? And they're linking back to your content. They have a part of their website that is really targeted at HCPs and how they can support patients and advocate for them, right? And they are linking back to your content as an authority on what that HCP should be thinking about. Okay,
Janna. So why don't we dive a little deeper in each of these three areas? Let's start with the on-page component. Maybe remind us of what it stands for and how can you make sure you do it right?
So on-page, again, is the content on your HCP engagement platform that you want your HCP to consume. A couple of things to think about when you're creating content. First, you want to do keyword research, right? So you don't want to assume the language you're using in the piece of content is actually going to resonate with your audience in terms of what they're searching for and the words they're using to find your content. And so you need to do keyword research. You need to take your content and you need to look at what are people searching for in the world of search engines, what words are they using, and how does that align with your content? And then you want to make sure to build in some of those terms and words where you can. And then the other piece on that is you want to make sure you have a good user experience so that the person on your site can quickly scan the content. They see the headers, that there's tagged correctly in terms of HTML. We don't need to go into detail on that, but you have to tag them correctly so that the search engine knows their importance to the content.
Is MedComms evolving faster than your team can keep up? You're not alone, and you don't have to navigate it alone. Wesley Portegies, host of Transforming Medical Communications, is offering a limited number of 30-minute consultancy sessions for senior medical affairs professionals. Whether it's medical communications, field medical, or medical affairs training, These sessions are a chance to explore real-world challenges, pressure test ideas, and walk away with practical strategic insight. No fluff, just strategy. Book your free session now. Link is in the show notes.
Nice. How about the second bucket? Let's move to the off-page
Yes.
optimization.
So off-page SEO, again, is links back to your site from authoritative sources, whether that's a patient advocacy group, another partner you work with, a research paper, research institution. So you want links back from authoritative sources that are also doing really well in their SEO, right? Back to your site. This can also be driven through some of our omni-channel platforms, so email and social media, third-party platforms, all of these things driving traffic back to your site, to content on your site, helps you in your search engine optimization and rankings in search.
So from what I understand, the search engines are kind of thinking like, okay, if other people take the effort of linking to this, it must be important, right? So the more that happens, and if those sources where it's being linked from are actually relevant to the same topic, then it counts even more.
Yes, exactly. It's sort of back to the concept that, if you create content in a vacuum and you just post your content without anybody, saying this is great content or pointing to it, then you're not going to rank as well as if, when you're sharing your content through other channels, organizations you work with are also doing the same.
Yeah, and so that means that the key ultimately comes back to content is king, right? So you need really, really good content in order to actually encourage and motivate other people to link to it and say, hey, listen, the rest of the world, you should know this too. Let's link to it. Let's share this with others, right? And I think like even uptake in social media and these kind of things factor into the algorithm too, right?
Yeah, I mean, content is king, yes. If your content is not seen as relevant and valuable by the search engines, then they're not going to prioritize it in rankings and make sure that people see it.
Yeah. So does it make sense to encourage other platforms to link to you?
Yes, it does, where you can. So, for example, if you have partner organizations that you work with, whether it's advocacy groups, research groups, encouraging them, if possible, to link to your content, especially if they have quite the following themselves, is really, really helpful.
Amazing. How about the next step, which is, I think, that the technical part of the optimization, right?
Yeah, so this is probably less fun for a lot of people, but the technical piece, you really need to make sure your website is well designed and works well. So, Google prioritizes a good user experience because, and we all should prioritize a good user experience because you want a person to come to your website, easily find what they want and they need, and, easily scan and enjoy the experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what I heard about this is that you have these crawlers, right? So you have, so basically every search engine visits your website on a regular basis as if they are like a human, right? And basically trying to find their way on your website and read it, right? And from what I understood, like I really liked, so this is how someone explained it to me and I really liked it. So that's why I'm repeating it here. So the better you can lead the way to that crawler and help understand how everything is connected, for instance, by linking certain content to other content on the same page or same website, the easier it is to understand for these crawlers how everything relates and for it to make sense out of it. Did I understand that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Make it easy, not just for the person visiting your content, but for the crawlers to get to your content. And those are one and the same, right? If it's easy for the crawler, then it should be also easy for the person who's trying to get to your content. The other thing to note is that there are pages that if search engines think they aren't valuable, they just won't crawl them. So if you have a piece of content where all you've done is embed a PDF in the page, but you haven't provided any context, any content, then most likely search engines are going to ignore that content and not index it.
That is actually a great point. And especially when I'm thinking about a lot of our work in the publication extender space, right? Where we typically accompany those with like summaries and so on in order to make the pages indexable for search engines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's really important to have the content on the page be indexable, and PDFs are not indexable, like in a way that is valuable to search engines, right? So you really having the content on the page, if it's written content, making sure it's clear and it summarizes. If you have a video, making sure there's a transcript available, also really important so that the crawlers can consume that content too. Having those videos on YouTube also really helpful where you can, because that helps to drive engagement too. And then infographics also really important. If you have a chart or an infographic with important information, you want to, in your alt text, describe what that information is so that the search engines, as well as anybody who is trying to consume your content who might have a visual issue and is using a screen reader, right? So this really will help them understand what the content is and be able to consume it.
Absolutely. Now, let's say someone is in medical communications. Let's say they have an HCP engagement platform or some other digital environment where they're sharing information with the outside world, and they want to understand how they are currently scoring when it comes to SEO. What is the best way to go about it? Because what I understand is that it's not about the platform, right? It's not about ranking a website. It's about ranking a page, and it's ranking a page for certain keywords. So how can you make sense about that? How can someone know, like, oh, we're doing really good at SEO, or maybe not?
So I would say to that, overall ranking of your HCP engagement platform is still really important. You can look at each piece of content individually, but if your overall rankings are not good, that's not going to help your content. Where can you find this information? There are quite a few SEO tools. Two of the ones that come to mind are SEMrush and Ahrefs. Those are two tools that SEO experts use all the time to understand the authority scores of a site, all of the backlinks that are going to the site. They're a treasure trove of information. Where you rank for each term, there's a lot of information in these tools.
That's great advice. Well, Janna, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thanks so much for sharing your insights here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Transforming Medical Communications is brought to you by MedComms Experts. To find out more about MedComms Experts and how we create some of the most cutting-edge medical communications programs anywhere in the world, visit med-experts.com. And then make sure to search for Transforming Medical Communications in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at MedComms Experts, thanks for listening.